Another year, boys and girls, and another Game of Thrones spin-off. This time, we'll be doing a non-spoiler review for the newest show, A Night of the Nine Kingdoms. And if you're confused by that, come back to this video after February 22nd. And of course, we're going to be doing things a little differently this time around. We're going to be separating this Season 1 review into 7 different categories. Why 7? Well, it's a staple in the franchise. 7 kingdoms, 7 gods, 7 books, and 7 different excuses on why George hasn't finished Winds of Winter. It's like poetry, it rhymes. But if you're wondering if I got the screeners, the answer is no. I asked HBO and they just sent me an LOL, but I do have a contact who works there and they were able to help me out. So unlike other YouTubers, you don't have to worry about me cooking this review to appease the shareholders. Because on this channel, we don't sell out. That said, this video was brought to you by Raid, Shadow Legends, the fantastic dark... I'm kidding. Let's get into it. And in case you're wondering why I'm doing this review in a podcast-style format, well, let's just say HBO had other plans for the footage I tried using. So, first and foremost, was it good? That's the number one question I've had thrown at me, and yeah, it was fine. If I had to give it a rating on a scale from 1 to 10, it's a solid 7.5. It's not going to set the world on fire like Game of Thrones did, but it's a step in the right direction. I think book fans will have issues with some of the changes, and casuals will either really like it or forget it the moment their book fan relative stops talking about it. There isn't any courtly intrigue like we got from Thrones or the Edward vs. Jacob team sports that we got from House of the Dragon to keep everyone engaged, but it does do a good job of keeping you entertained. It's a nice little story set in this world. I would argue that they should release 2 or 3 episodes on the premiere rather than 1 because, unlike the previous 2 shows, it doesn't really end on an, oh my god, I gotta watch the next episode right now type of way, the way Thrones did, with Bran being tossed out the window and Hot D giving us Rhaenyra being named heir, which felt pretty exciting at the time, as if this would be a new era of the series. Little did we know, it's, all a misunderstanding. But this show here, it's fine. It's not bad. It doesn't make you yell out its name during sex with your wife, but it will keep you invested. So, does it remain faithful to the source material in terms of story? Yeah, it does actually. It pretty much starts the same way and ends slightly different. In fact, I would argue the last episode's final scene has one of the funniest moments in the entire series, all 3 shows included. And there is an end credit scene, kinda. It's not even end credits. I wouldn't even say it's mid-credit scenes. It happens right after... You'll see it. If you ask me, my favorite episode would have to be that last one. I quite liked it. And there are very minor story changes, and even one story addition that's so minor, but so cool, that it needs to be made canon in the books. I won't spoil it, of course, but all I'm gonna say is, Beesbury. And I'll leave it at that. But the story follows an interesting formula that book readers are all too familiar with, and that is, the entire show follows Dunk's perspective. Almost every single scene is from Dunk's point of view, and if he's not there to witness a conversation between other characters, then we won't be seeing it. Although there are a few rare moments where a scene happens that Dunk isn't in, you can probably count on one hand how many of those there are. So, after House of the Dragon changed quite a bit of stuff, you're probably wondering if this show does it too. Yes, and also, not really. The best way to describe it would be like Game of Thrones Season 1, which I would argue is the best season of Thrones, but also one of the most faithful to the books. Certain changes and additions made in Season 1 were so good that we're still talking about them to this day. Robert Cersei, Jaime Tywin, even Arya and Ned's conversation, which George has gone on record as saying he loved it so much he wishes he could put it in his book. So there's plenty of changes and additions like that, but also stuff that I wish they didn't do. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll say this. I'm not a fan of the early 2000s gross-out humor that plagued Hollywood for the longest time, and it does feel like showrunner Ira Parker invited his 15-year-old little brother into the writer's room for certain scenes. They're few and far in between, thank God, but when they happen, it's just... yeah, it's awkward and dumb, in my opinion. And speaking of showrunner Ira Parker, you can tell he very much knows a lot about the theories surrounding the fandom, and there is one that he's a fan of specifically that has to do with Egg and Summerhall. I won't go into detail, but if you watched us discuss this on Preston's stream a few weeks ago, then you know what I'm talking about. If you missed it, you can find it on the Game of Thrones podcast Clips channel, and you'll see it there. But Ira Parker, he seems to be a big fan of this one, and he pretty much sets it up as the main focus of this character's future. And because George was there in the room with him when he was writing all of this, it's all but confirmed to be a thing that's happening going forward. Now, I will say there were some changes I wish they would have made concerning characters that appear later in the season, because it feels like some of these guys appear out of nowhere. One of them does get maybe 2 minutes of screen time in earlier episodes before he shows up at the end to help out, but I feel like Dunk should have encountered all of them at various points throughout the show. More on this in another video. The tone of the show... So, the interviews love to say how it's low-stakes adventure, it's grounded, it's gritty, but also fun, and yeah, that is fairly accurate. This is Westeros. One moment you're in a nice incestuous love affair on the beach with your uncle, and the next you're tripping balls in a dark castle while getting visions of snow zombies. Anything can happen at any time. But here, nothing really happens until the 3rd episode. If you read the novella, you know what I'm talking about. This show having such low stakes and being a lighthearted adventure, if you could even call it an adventure, wasn't an issue for me, but it really does depend on casual fans being okay with a show that takes a step back from impending danger and doom and war and dragons killing each other. In terms of characters, everybody does a fantastic job. You won't find a badly cast actor here. And if you're wondering what I consider bad casting, Keanu Reeves in Dracula was just terrible. Like, there's nothing here anywhere remotely close to that. The guy they got for Dunk does a great job at being such a lovable dork. In fact, I would be surprised if you walked away from this show telling me you didn't know someone like Dunk in high school. We all knew that one guy, and he plays it perfectly. Egg is fine. He's a child actor, and sometimes they're really good and sometimes they're not. He's fine, but of course he works best when he's with Dunk, obviously. Lionel Baratheon stole the show for me in every scene he's in. Homie really does live up to the Robert Baratheon memes. Book fans, on the other hand, I think will love Raymond Fossaway. By the end of season 1, it'll be a battle between who's the bestest of best friend for Dunk, Lionel or Raymond. Tansel doesn't get enough to do in the show, and I feel like these characters, like her and, a bunch of others, should have gotten more screen time. But it seems like Sir Arlen takes up a lot of those scenes and then time, which is a shame. There are times when Ira Parker is so concerned with keeping this faithful that he doesn't have enough time to give other characters more screen time. But then when he does, and decides to give it to someone, he gives it to Lionel, which I'm not complaining, it's well deserved. But, I don't know, I feel as though sometimes he was too afraid to step outside of the source material, and when he does, it's great. But for the most part, he likes to stay, within the lines. Kinda. The Targaryens are fine. Baelor is a bro, like he is in the novella. Arryn is less evil, still a villain, but he's not cartoony like I felt he was in the source material. Maekar somehow looks the most Targaryen out of everyone there, which is great. They did a good job casting on him, and I quite liked his performance. Sir Arlen, however, I didn't hate Sir Arlen, and I don't want to spoil it for you guys. Even if I was doing a spoiler review, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, because the best way to describe him is that he's drunk Gandalf, and I'll leave it at that. As for what I liked and disliked, well, again, the story is solid, and Ira Parker manages to include some original scenes that help make the show pretty good, but also other decisions that are pretty weird, mostly some of the misplaced humor, especially during important moments. Certain characters get a lot of screen time, which turned out great, and then other characters are left out. I think Tansel, who is fairly important to Dunk's story, gets maybe 3 or 4 minutes of screen time. It's a mixed bag in terms of added things, but most often than not, it's not a bad thing. There's more to like here than dislike, and hopefully everyone, book fan and casual, enjoys it, and we get many more seasons to come. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill, and be sure to leave your questions down below because I plan on featuring some of them in my episode review on Monday. Once again, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.